Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi returns after a successful visit to Italy. He had participated in the outreach session of the G7 summit. It was on artificial intelligence, energy, Africa and the Mediterranean. He also met world leaders. Leaders of the Group of Seven, they've issued the Apulia G7 Leaders Communique. They've reiterated steadfast support to Ukraine. They've called for fostering partnerships with African countries and reiterated their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa gets another term, and this is after the African National Congress struck a deal to form a national government with the opposition. In sports, Rohit Sharma led India to lock horns with Canada in their final group stage match of the T20 Cricket World Cup. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in New Delhi after a productive G7 summit in Italy. Prime Minister Modi, in a social media post, said, and I quote, "Had a very productive day at the G7 summit in Apulia, interacted with world leaders and discussed various subjects. Together, we aim to create impactful solutions that benefit the global community and create a better world for future generations. I thank the people and government of Italy for their warm hospitality." Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the outreach session on artificial intelligence, energy, Africa and the Mediterranean at the G7 summit in Apulia in Italy on Friday. The Prime Minister expressed that it was a matter of great satisfaction for him to be attending the summit after his re-election in the largest democratic exercise in the history of mankind. And he also expressed that for technology to be successful, it had to be underpinned by a human-centric approach. In this context, he shared India's success in leveraging digital technology for public service delivery. And talking of India's AI mission, which is premised on AI for all, the Prime Minister emphasized that this technology should be aimed at fostering progress and well-being for all. He also underlined that with this broader objective, India was fostering international collaboration as a founding member of the Global Partnership for AI. Prime Minister Modi also elaborated on India's energy transition pathway, noting that its approach was based on availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. And he mentioned that India was working towards achieving the target of net zero by 2070. Alluding to India's mission Life, he called upon the global community to join the tree plantation campaign launched by him on World Environment Day, Plant for Mother. And Prime Minister called for giving priority to concerns of the Global South, in particular Africa. He recalled that it was a matter of honor for India that the African Union was admitted as a permanent member of the G20 under its presidency. Later, leaders from the world at the outreach session of the G7 summit, they posed for a family photograph. The leaders of the Group of Seven have issued a communique. It's called the Apulia G7 Leaders Communique after the G7 summit in Italy. And these leaders, they've reiterated their support for Ukraine, stepping up the support to African countries and the commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific based on the rule of law. The leaders reiterated their unwavering support for Ukraine. by continuing to provide military, budgetary, humanitarian and reconstruction support to Ukraine and its people. They've reiterated condemnation of brutal terrorist attacks conducted by Hamas and other terrorist groups against Israel on the 7th of October 2023. The leaders have committed to stepping up the support to African countries in efforts to achieve sustainable development and also local value creation, and to strengthen democratic governance and to contribute to global stability and prosperity and protect the rule-based international order. They also have reiterated their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific based on the rule of law, which is inclusive, prosperous and also secure. And it's grounded in sovereignty, territorial integrity, peaceful resolution of disputes, also fundamental freedoms and human rights. The leaders have reiterated their determination to address the triple global crisis. This is of climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss. The G7 has, in fact, the G7 has expressed deep concern over China's industrial policy at the end of a summit in the south of Italy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi joined G7 leaders for talks on Friday. That's after they clinched a deal to issue a $50 billion loan to Ukraine using frozen Russian assets on the opening day. From the Italian city of Bari, DD India's Giles Gibson takes a look at the key takeaways from the group's joint statement.
Heading into this G7 summit, both the US and the European Union issued new tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, and now the G7 as a whole is warning about its concerns about China's, quotes, harmful overcapacity and the impact on their economies of cheaper imports coming from China. Now, the G7 are insisting in this joint statement that they're not trying to hold back China's economic development, but Beijing is almost certain to respond in the same way that it did to those new tariffs on Chinese EVs, accusing the members of the G7 of, quotes, protectionism. When it comes to the conflict in Gaza, we saw in this joint statement the G7 leaders saying that they are united in supporting the US proposals for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Meanwhile, joining Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the outreach sessions on day 2 of this summit was Pope Francis, who made the trip down from the Vatican to warn about the risks of artificial intelligence. The Pope, of course, in the past has been a victim of so-called deepfake images showing him wearing a papal puffer jacket, those images fooling many social media users around the world. And finally, in this joint statement from the G7, there is a pledge on something that is a really important piece of the host Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's domestic agenda. The G7 are now launching a coalition to pool their resources to crack down on illegal smuggling groups bringing migrants across different seas, such as the Mediterranean Sea. Giles Gibson in Bari, reporting for DD India.
Well, Switzerland is to host a peace summit on June 15 and 16 in support of Ukraine's President Zelensky's peace proposals. The US Vice President Kamala Harris, the French President Emmanuel Macron, and leaders of Germany, Italy, Britain, Canada and Japan are among those who are going to be attending this peace summit in the Swiss mountaintop resort of Bugenstock. Well, Turkey and Hungary had maintained cordial relations with Russia, and they are also going to be represented by their foreign ministers. But despite months of intense Ukrainian and Swiss lobbying, some others will not be there, and most notably China is not going to be there, a key consumer of Russian oil and also a supplier of goods that help Moscow to maintain its manufacturing base. Now, Moscow, which has not been invited to this conference, has called the gathering futile. Russia has denounced the meeting and said that the countries had been pushed to choose sides. The Russian President Putin has also set out conditions for peace talks with Ukraine.
The conditions are very simple. Ukrainian troops must be completely withdrawn from the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics, the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions, and I draw your attention from the entire territory of these regions, within the administrative borders that existed at the time of their entry into Ukraine. As soon as Kiev declares that it is ready for such a decision and begins the actual withdrawal of troops from these regions, as well as officially notifies that they abandon plans to join NATO, an order to cease fire and begin negotiations will immediately follow from our side, literally at the same minute.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin says that Russia would cease fire and start talks if the Ukrainian forces withdraw from 4 regions Moscow claims as its own. Russia also wants Kiev to drop its NATO ambition. Ukraine and the West have dismissed these conditions, with NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg on Friday calling Putin's initiative a proposal for more aggression, more occupation. Dasha Chernyshova, DD India's correspondent in Moscow, reports.
Moscow warned that the responsibility for continued bloodshed in Ukraine lies with Kiev and the West, as Russian President Vladimir Putin's ceasefire offer has been rejected. On Friday, Putin said Russia would be ready to order a ceasefire in Ukraine and enter negotiations with Ukraine if Kiev withdrew its troops from 4 regions that Moscow now claims as its own: Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics, as well as Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Ukraine should also drop its aspirations to join NATO. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky called Putin's proposal an ultimatum which cannot be trusted. Moscow, however, says it is a real chance for peace. Until now, Moscow has insisted that any negotiations should take into account present-day realities. Putin explained that Moscow doesn't want to freeze the conflict, but instead to find a lasting solution. The proposal came as G7 leaders were meeting in Italy and ahead of the Ukrainian peace conference due in Switzerland. Moscow said it would be impossible to reach a peaceful solution on Ukraine and overall on global European security without Russia. Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has been re-elected and for a second term as part of a unity government between the Democratic Alliance Party and the African National Congress. It's a major change for the country after 30 years of ANC rule. Ramaphosa received 283 votes and 44 was received by Julius Malema, who is the leader of the opposition's Economic Freedom Fighters Party. But this deal between 2 sharply antagonistic parties is the most momentous political shift in South Africa since Nelson Mandela led the ANC to victory in the 1994 election that marked the end of apartheid. The ANC lost its majority for the first time in an election on May 29, and then it spent 2 weeks in talks with other parties. Long seen as unbeatable in national elections, the ANC lost support in recent years as the voters seem to be wary about the persistently high levels of poverty, the inequality there, crime, and as well as corruption in the party ranks. A 2-day Nepal International Tourism Expo kicked off in Kathmandu on Friday. And well, this expo, it's organized to promote Nepal's tourism in the international market. 155 entrepreneurs from 16 countries are participating in the 2-day fair. The participants include Nepal, India, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Maldives, the US, Netherlands, Sri Lanka, China, Thailand, the UAE, among other countries. So what's happening is that the expo is featuring panel discussions and also various topics related to tourism. These discussions delved into multifaceted aspects of Nepal's tourism, paving the way for addressing the current tourism policies, challenges and solutions. Muslim pilgrims in Saudi Arabia ascended the rocky Mount of Mercy at sunrise to mark Arafah, which is the most significant day of the annual Hajj. The pilgrims will stay at Arafat. This is until the sunset of Saturday, and this is before moving to Muzdalifah. And there they will gather pebbles and throw them at columns symbolizing the devil. This ritual marks the beginning of Eid al-Adha, which is a feast of sacrifice celebrated globally by Muslims on Sunday. And Mount of Mercy, in fact, overseeing the plain of Arafat, is historically believed to be the location where Prophet Muhammad gave his last sermon. And the Hajj is recognized as the world's largest religious gathering. Now, still to come here on DD India in this edition of DD India Live, 18th edition of the Mumbai International Film Festival for short films, documentaries and animation films gears up for a grand inauguration today. Gujarat's Smritivan Earthquake Memorial Museum in Bhuj joins UNESCO's most beautiful museums list.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Mark Lynn. In the wake of a series of terror attacks in Jammu region, the Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Friday chaired a review meeting on the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir with the concerned officials. This comes after several terrorist attacks and encounters have hit the valley. Over the past 4 days, terrorists attacked 4 locations in Riyasi, Kathua and Doda districts in Jammu and Kashmir. 2 terrorists were killed in an encounter with security forces in Kathua district. A large quantity of arms and ammunition was recovered from the incidents. In news that's coming in, 8 Naxals were killed in an encounter in Chhattisgarh's Narayanpur. The encounter between the security forces and the Naxals has been underway in Madh, Narayanpur district for the last 2 days. 1 security personnel was injured in the encounter. The Delhi High Court has issued notice to all the parties, including Sunita Kejriwal, the wife of the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, on a plea seeking action for violating the court's video conferencing rules when the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal was produced before the Roos Avenue Court during his police custody on March 28. The High Court also directed Sunita Kejriwal and 5 other individual respondents in the case to take down their posts and also directed the social media companies to take down any other posts or reposts regarding the video recorded on that day. The court has now listed the matter for July 9. In a remarkable achievement, the Smritivan Earthquake Memorial Museum in Bhuj and Kutch district of Gujarat has been awarded the 3rd spot in UNESCO's prestigious list, recognizing it as one of the world's 7 most beautiful museums. Gujarat's Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel has celebrated this significant accomplishment, calling it a proud moment for both Gujarat and India. The Smritivan Earthquake Memorial Museum secured the 3rd spot on this prestigious list. Inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in August 28 in 2022, this memorial, the Smritivan Earthquake Memorial Museum, it commemorates the lives lost during the devastating earthquake in 2001. And according to the museum's officials and the website, the facility spans 11,500 square meters. It's divided into 7 thematic blocks, and these are all in the name of R: rebirth, rediscovery, restore, rebuild, and rethink, relive, and renew, each representing a different aspect of the museum's mission. A young farmer from India's Assam is raising the bar of strong willpower. Gopal Nag from Chandamari Bangali village of Bishwanath district lost both his legs in a road accident in 2014, and doctors performed 5 surgeries but could not save his legs. However, Gopal, with courage to fight against the challenges of life, did not stop, and starting life once again from scratch, Nag has tilled his land, started a tea garden, and he grows vegetables, making his days better. He's now a successful farmer and has become a role model for many people. Gopal does all the work by himself, ranging from ploughing, sowing of seeds and harvesting. The young farmer, was awarded as an ideal farmer on Republic Day, and Nag stands tall amid all the adversities, and he continues to inspire others despite his disabilities. And now let's get you an update on the 18th edition of the Mumbai International Film Festival. Anticipation mounts as the 18th edition of the Mumbai International Film Festival for short films, documentaries and animation films gears up for a grand inauguration today, marking the commencement of a cinematic celebration that promises to captivate audiences and industry professionals alike. Over the next week, the festival will have 314 films from 59 countries in 61 languages, 8 world premieres, 5 international premieres, 18 Asia premieres and 21 India premieres. Around 60 countries are participating through their films and other kinds of engagement in the film festival. Now, the opening ceremony of the Mumbai Film Festival will showcase the FTTI student short film Sunflowers Were the First Ones to Know, which won laurels at the 77th Cannes Film Festival this year. Let's take a look at other stories making the news. The Kashi Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi introduced an innovative virtual reality experience for devotees, and this new initiative allows worshippers to engage in an 11-minute virtual reality darshan of the temple. The VR experience provides high-definition visuals that transport viewers into the heart of the temple. Delhi Metro's train services for Phase 3 sections will start at 6 a.m. on the 16th of June to help students appearing for the Union Public Services exam, the UPSC exam, and the Commission will conduct the Civil Service exam on Sunday across the country at various centres. This arrangement is being made to facilitate the candidates appearing for the civil services. And now for all the updates on International Yoga Day, which is going to be celebrated on the 21st of June. Yoga camps are being organized across the northwestern Indian state of Rajasthan ahead of International Yoga Day on the 21st of June. A yoga camp was organized at the Chitrakoot Stadium in Jaipur city, where a large number of people, including the Minister, Colonel Rajvardhan Singh Rathore, and the Mayor of Jaipur, participated in a yoga session. Now, during the event, Colonel Rathore he said that by adopting yoga, one can live a healthy and disciplined life. The cultural wing of the High Commission of India, the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre, has been holding a 10-day-long festival, a yoga festival in Sri Lanka. An event was held on Saturday morning with the specific theme of yoga for families at the Colombo Town Hall. The event was supported by an Indian organization, Sadgamaya Foundation and Ganga Ramaya Temple. Several events are lined up until the 22nd of June across the island. Sports news now. India is going to square off with Canada. This is the last of the Group A matches, at least for India, in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. and it's happening in Florida, where it's raining cats and dogs. The weather is likely to disrupt play as several parts of Florida are in the grip of torrential rains. Though India has already qualified for the Super 8s, they would be expecting their star batsman Virat Kohli to get back among the runs, because he's had a dismal tournament so far, having scored just 5 runs in 3 innings. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live, but let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. And this app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.